Welcome. Welcome to a very hot, waterless and powerless Kimberley. Anybody that comes from anywhere else thinks it might be a disaster, but I hear the Joburgers have no water either, and the Capetonians have lived with it. So I think we're just in a place that we always are in South Africa, and probably going a long way there. Because there's a few of us, I'm going to introduce all of you to each other because it's the simplest and easiest way to do. So first of all, we've got our guest speakers. Prof Crouch, the VC. The VC is, like all the posters say these days, son of the soil. Born in Kimberley, educated in Kimberley, left when he was 17, and back here for his swan song. When I introduce him properly, I'll give the whole speech of what he's done in his life, but I think one must remember this the most of all. It's like investing in the place you grew up to give back, and we all go along with that premise. Then we've got Prof Namdi, gosh. Prof Namdi has expressed a special interest in the development of architecture in South Africa. I'm very impressed with the work he's done, but it's too intellectual for me. I won't go there. Namdi was appointed by the university to head up the adjudication panel as the chairman. Obviously, that means he's the person interpreting for the jurors the works that were put for us and leading the process of the adjudication. We then have other members of senior management here. David Kangui. David is the CEO, and he was a SPU representative on the adjudication panel. What we also have is Q Simponde, who's the Director of Institutional Advancement. And Q is the person who has only been here as long as David, and he's the person who is going to make sure we get branded well into the future. Then we have, of the task team here, just Toy and Mark Shearer. Everybody else is online, but that means we only got one juror here that you can, but don't know if you're not happy. The other jurors were Nomondi Kisimang Taibashi, who is the Executive Director of Strategic Economic Planning and Development at Plaatje Municipality. She was previously a judge in our second round of architectural appointments. And then the three jurors who were Sita Mate, Morella Designs from Botswana, Bonimakwi from Studio Mars, and Colleen Thomashoff from Thomashoff and Partners. I think now that the big thing is the contestants who are sitting all in the background, should be sitting in the front row. What we have, and I've written them in alphabetical order, is Fiona Garson from Cohen & Garson. As we pointed out to Prof, their business, the partnership did this building, the one across that's being built, and one further down on the other campus. And this shows the kind of buildings that we live with at the moment. I think that the wonderful thing about being here today is I could get you in a room where you could see what we've all been doing. I think that's actually the most interesting part of coming to this venue. Then we've got Creative Blueprints. Nika, sorry, Nika. Okay, then we've got Yaputa Architects and Urban Designers who are online, Lemon Pebble, Tanzim, and Nabil, Mashilo Lamprechts online, Rulef Rabi online, and Savadin Dodd Heather. And then we've got Mashima, Jacques, and Louis who are doing all the backup noise, streaming, etc. I think now that the last people I want to say is Toy. We had asked the other project managers to swell the numbers, but they don't do that. And I just want to thank them for what we see today that the new architects will be working within. I'm going to call upon Prof Crouch now no, sorry, wrong part. Namdi. Namdi's going to come and tell us in a brief synopsis of the adjudication process and clarify the adjudicator's recommendations. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Christine. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's an honor to meet everybody here. Distinguished Vice-Chancellor, and Christine, you've said the most beautiful things. He's come home, and that's the right thing to give back to the home. But I would also like to say we do miss him at Wits, and we are delighted with the work he is doing here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the honorable occasion in the development of SPU. The search for appropriate architectural services consultant was undertaken by entries into a two-stage architectural competition in which 9 finalists from the first stage IDS competition proceeded to develop the final entries as designs for a prominent building structure on the North Campus. The background to this competition and the members of the adjudication panel have been posted and have been introduced to you elsewhere, and also by Christine. Recognizing the significance of the structure that will be built on this rich site, where several histories and memories converge, and keeping in mind that whatever structure that will be built on the site will be a significant and outstanding cultural, intellectual, and technological innovation for the university, the jurors took the time to consider all parameters that were set out in the design competition. The adjudication process, with myself as the chair, answering questions where clarifications were needed, and being administered by Mr. Shearer, the jurors followed a very conscientious process. Health and safety reasons in July 2021 resulted in the jurors having to evaluate stage 1 competition online. Before that, the intention was to be here. With increasing national vaccination, the adjudication panel was able to meet together to hold a final review here at the Plaatje University campus on the 12th and the 13th, and on the 13th of November. It is important to highlight again the scoring criterion which the competitors were required to uphold, and which determines 6 key urban architectural design issues. They include the design principles identified in the stage 1 ideas competition by the final contestants, the design principles identified in the stage 1 ideas competition by the final contestants, implementation of the site development framework principles, compliance with the 6 diverse directives to justification of breaking from them, overall planning and viability, identity and sense of place, aesthetics, and of course the budget. The 5 adjudicators worked independently, reviewed each project meticulously with attention to the guidelines, and scored their points discreetly. Each project was discussed from diverse perspectives, taking into account the strengths and the areas that could be developed further. The jurors confirmed that the competition brief had been professionally scoped and the expected outcomes communicated clearly. It was clear that the brief required participants to engage at an urban as well as building scale, and that the palimpsests of informants had to be acknowledged, engaged with, and incorporated into the final design. The entries that the jurors adjudicated were considered to be overall of high standards, and it was apparent that the participants had clarity of what was expected of them. To some extent, the brief could have been shortened. The body of information that the competitors had to work with through its substantial and given the short period of time available to them to develop this in 6 weeks was extensive. And for that reason, we do acknowledge it and commend all of them for the outstanding work they submitted. The jurors confirmed that the adjudication process had been professionally led and expertly handled by both Mark Shearer, the competition administrator, myself, the university appointed adjudication chairman. Their report advised that our professional conduct contributed to the high level of adjudication and the process that was carried out seamlessly. The jurors were given a thorough introduction by Ludwig Hansen, the university-appointed overall site development framework consultant, which both informed and gave good insights and understanding of the background to the site, the urban design framework, and the vision of the university. I believe all the adjudicators acted in the best interest of the university and that all were in agreement with the winners that were put forward. The following comments from the jurors define what differentiated the winning project from the rest, and it is based on overlap between civic and academic space for the graduation hall. The jurors suggested that if the scheme was to be developed further, this design could create a precedent, demonstrating how one can design successful multifunctional space at this scale. The architectural language of this project will hopefully lead the way to encourage the designers of future projects on the campus to design lighter, sophisticated buildings with a new identity, though grounded in the existing identity of the Plaatje University campus. The winners should be encouraged to take note of a few concerns, the most important of all being that the histories of the site and surrounding must remain a key element going forward. Superficial reference to the historical layers of the site should be avoided. Intelligent, creative, and innovative proposals that demonstrate a fully integrated understanding of historical context must form an integral part of the design. The urban design framework should also be considered more, especially the connection to the city center and the development of the open spaces north and south of the proposed building. More attention is needed to develop these areas to its full potential. I extend my gratitude to Vice-Chancellor Crouch and the members of the staff at SPU for the opportunity to be part of this process. Also to the distinguished members of the practicing community, yourselves, who presented outstanding work. And above all, to the administrator, Mr. Shearer, and the members of the adjudication panel. Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks. I think that we need to explain really, as we always do, the next speaker. I've said he's the son of a soil, but Prof Crouch is, as all academics at the top of the world in their positions, not just Vice-Chancellor. He comes from all those places that that take you through studying at UWC, getting a BSc in chemistry and biochemistry, a BSc honours in chemistry, and then working there for 15 years. He did his PhD in Montreal at Concordia University, and then came back and taught at Stellenbosch, where he was Associate Dean of Natural Sciences. Progressed to Witwatersrand, where he was Sorry. Both Vice Principal, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic, and Executive Dean of the Faculty of Science. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for that kind introduction. I always say that when people introduce you, you sometimes wonder whether you recognize the person that's been introduced, because it's part of your history. And although I'd like history myself, and I'm sure the architects, the people here are more sophisticated in terms of their knowledge base of history, I nonetheless recognize history. I also, apart from the adjudicating panel, I'd like to particularly recognize other members of our executive, Mr. Kangwe, Mr. Sompondo. I see our CFO has also joined us. Welcome, Ms. Marais. Prof Namdi Eli, an ex-colleague of mine. You did say that Wits University miss me. I'm still joined by the hip to Wits University. I'm an emeritus professor of chemistry, still at Wits. And I still have a Wits email address, so that you can still contact me on my old email address. To members of the adjudicating panel, who did all the hard work in evaluating the submissions of the architects, I'd like to thank all of you for your hard work. To all the architects who submitted their briefs, all the initial 43 and then the 9 who were shortlisted, I'd also like to thank all of you for the hard work you've put in. Normally in an open competition of this kind, the best submission has to be considered. The fact that it's an open architectural competition held by this university shows that we would like to promote the principle of fair, equitable, and to a certain extent a transparent and a competitive process. Now I know when you have this kind of process, there are always questions being asked about what do we want to consider. And I'm sure that the adjudicating panel and the brief that you have been given were enough to give you the guidelines to be able to present or have presented your submission in a way that spoke to the brief. In considering where the building that you were asked to, in fact, design a building for was situated, since I am from Kimberley, I always say to people that I know the area quite well. And as a young child, I wasn't born there, but I was born in a place somewhere in this direction, next to the airport. And as a young boy, I used to walk past the old Malay camp in Kimberley, where you were asked to erect or design a building for. And I remember driving past that area with my father, and he used to go in there quite a lot into the Malay camp to visit his friends. So if I have to think of a building to be erected there, I would think that it should, to a certain extent, also represent not only the aspirations of the people who stay there, but it also should capture some of the history, and to a certain extent some of the pain which people endured, people that were evicted there. People accuse me in Kimberley of being a land grabber. I say, no, I'm not grabbing the land. I would like to think that all of Malay camp, or all of what used to be Malay camp, has to be given back to the university, so that that area where people were, in fact, evicted, that it becomes a beacon of hope for people of the future. And I have my eyes also on the municipality, because I believe that that building will join the North Campus with the Central Campus and make a continuum. People that believe that we're building a campus for 7,500 students, I think they only need to go outside of Kimberley to the Northern Cape and the Platteland and talk to people there and hear the expectation of access. I believe this campus should be double that size so that it meets the need of education which this province and this country needs. Now, I believe that the architectural competition itself was in 2 phases, and I'm not going into the detail. Prof Namdi, in fact, went into the detail of that. But suffice to say that in the second stage of the 9 finalists who qualified, the principles of integration, access, identity, shared space, efficiency, and heritage, which I have referred to, should all, in my view, be part of what you have put forward. So that when I look at that building, I hope I will still be alive when the building is going to be finally erected. I would like to see something there that really, really is representative of what Kimberley is, both in terms of its heritage and what it wants to be as a city going forward. I think it's also important for me to stress the importance as to why we need to appoint architects that produces high quality, that have an excellent experience to design buildings within the higher education sector, and architects that are also compliant in terms of our national policies, in terms of BB, triple E, or triple B, double E. I always get it wrong. So for me, this competition, which marks now the 3rd phase entry of building in Plaatje University, and I'm happy to be part of this 3rd phase of construction, should exemplify, in my view, the aspirations of the citizens, as I've already said. So I'd like to congratulate all the contestants, all initial 43, and more importantly, the 9 finalists. And I just want to announce that all the 9 finalists would be awarded honorariums for the quality and effort they've put into this 2nd stage of the competition. It is now time for me to announce the 2nd place architectural design winners, and I'm glad to announce the name of DHK Architects as the 2nd place group of architects. If you are in the audience, could I please just ask you to identify yourselves? Please, you're welcome to stand up.
Yeah, I'm Lee Bishop from the DHK Architects.
Congratulations.
Hugely excited.
Congratulations. The first placed architectural firm and the winners of this competition is Cohen and Carsons. Please identify yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just say that we are extremely honoured, and we recognise how hard everyone has worked and how disappointing it is to not be a winner. And we also commit ourselves to absolutely dedicate ourselves to this project on this very sacred piece of land.
Thank you very much. Now, in choosing Cohen and Carsons as the first place architectural firm, the jurors reported that their proposed building has pushed the boundaries on the university's public interface and the possibilities for the university to give back to the city of Kimberley, the park and the residents of Kimberley. That park is still an open space, it's a public space. It is well used, maybe not necessarily frequented by the people you'd like to frequent parks. There are some things going on in the park which we hope to address going forward. The permeable nature of the building that was designed has responded to the Stage 2 brief requirements in respect of integration with the city regarding the facilitating of a seamless transition between the campus and its environment.